My twin sister called me at 2 in the morning, whispering from a locked closet that she'd found pills and was ready to take them. I didn't call 911. I didn't call a therapist. I didn't even call her back to talk her down. Instead, I got in my car, drove 800 miles through the night, walked into her house wearing her face, and let her husband think he still owned her. My name is Robin Regan. I'm 68 years old, and I spent 40 years clawing my way up the corporate ladder until I retired as vice president of operations for one of the largest tech firms in America. I've negotiated billion-dollar contracts in Sao Paulo, fired corrupt executives in Dubai, and restructured failing divisions in Singapore. I don't scare easy. I don't break under pressure. And I sure as hell don't let anyone hurt my family. But I failed my sister. For 30 years, I failed her. Let me take you back to that phone call because that's where everything changed. It was a Tuesday night in Chicago. The kind of cold that cuts through your coat and reminds you that Lake Michigan doesn't care how much money you have. I was in my penthouse apartment, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water, sipping a glass of Bordeaux that cost more than most people's car payments. I was reading through some investment portfolios, thinking about maybe buying a little place in Sedona for the winters. Comfortable, satisfied, completely oblivious. Then my phone lit up. Video call. Rosie's name on the screen. Now my sister and I are identical twins. I mean identical. Same face, same voice, same gray hair, same brown eyes that our mama used to say could see right through a lie. But we stopped looking alike about 20 years ago, when our lives went in completely different directions. I got sharp. She got diminished. I answered the call expecting to see her kitchen in Atlanta, maybe hear about her grandkids or ask me for advice about some car repair. Rosie married a mechanic named Glenn Carter 40 years ago, and she'd been living that small-town life ever since. What I saw instead made my blood run cold. Darkness. Then a sliver of light as the phone moved. An eye, swollen shut, the color of an overripe plum. Lips cracked and bleeding. And then her voice, so quiet I had to turn up the volume all the way. "Robin, I can't do this anymore." I sat up straight, the wine glass forgotten. "Rosie, where are you? What happened to your face?" "I'm in the closet in the bedroom," she whispered. Glenn locked the door. "They don't know I have my phone. Robin, they're making me sign papers tomorrow. The house. They're selling the house, and Glenn says if I don't sign, he's putting me in a state facility." Through the phone, I could hear voices. Laughter. A television blaring some sports game. "They're out there right now," Rosie continued, her voice breaking. "Glenn and Travis and Maya. They're eating steaks. T-bone steaks, Robin. And I haven't eaten since yesterday morning. There's a lock on the refrigerator now. Glenn put it on last week." A lock on the refrigerator. I felt something dark and cold settle in my chest. "Who's Travis?" I asked, keeping my voice steady even though I wanted to scream. "Maya's husband. They moved in 5 years ago. Said it was temporary. But Robin..." She started crying, soft little sobs that she was trying to muffle. "Robin, I found the pills. Glenn's sleeping pills. A whole bottle. I took them from the medicine cabinet and I have them right here in my pocket. I think I'm just going to take them and go to sleep. I'm so tired of being afraid. I'm so tired of being hungry. I'm just done." "No," my voice came out like a whip crack. "Rosie, you listen to me. You are a Regan. Mama didn't raise us to quit. You understand me? But I don't care what they're doing. I don't care what they said. You put those pills back right now. You hearing me?" She nodded, tears streaming down the one side of her face I could see. "Now listen carefully," I said, already standing up, already moving toward my bedroom. "Can you get out of that house?" "The back door's unlocked," she whispered. "But Glenn has the truck keys. He always keeps them." "Then you walk, you hear me? You get out that back door right now, and you walk. Go to the truck stop on Highway 85, the big one where Daddy used to take us for peach cobbler when we were girls. You remember? The Dixie stop? That's the one. I'll be there in 11 hours. You wait for me. Don't talk to anyone. Don't answer your phone if Glenn calls. Just wait." "Robin, you can't..." I hung up before she could finish. There wasn't time for arguments. I didn't pack a suitcase. I went straight to my closet and pulled out things I haven't worn in years. Worn jeans, a faded flannel shirt, old sneakers with duct tape holding the sole together. I found them in the back, saved from my early days when I was working 2 jobs and sending money home to Mama. I never throw anything away. You never know when you'll need to disappear. Then I went to my wall safe, spun the combination and pulled out $50,000 in cash, my passport, and something I haven't touched in 5 years, my Glock 19. I checked the magazine, chambered around, and slipped it into a shoulder holster under a jacket. I wasn't going to Atlanta for a family visit. I was going to war. I drove through the night, 800 miles of interstate, stopping only for gas and coffee. I had plenty of time to think. Too much time, maybe. Rosie and I used to be inseparable. When we were growing up in Birmingham in the 60s and 70s, being twins meant you always had backup. When the neighborhood boys tried to mess with us, we'd switch places and confuse them. When Mama needed help at her hair salon, we'd both pitch in, finishing each other's sentences, moving like one person in 2 bodies. But then we turned 18 and I wanted out. I wanted to see the world, make something of myself, prove that a black girl from Alabama could run with the big dogs in corporate America. I got a scholarship to Northwestern, moved to Chicago, and never looked back. Rosie stayed home. She said someone needed to take care of Mama, and besides, she'd met Glenn. He was handsome back then, working at a garage, had that smooth-talking charm that made her giggle like a schoolgirl. They got married young, had Maya when they were 23. I visited when I could. Christmas, Mama's birthday, the occasional summer weekend, but I was busy building empires while Rosie was building a life. I thought she was happy. She always smiled when I showed up, cooked big meals, asked about my travels. Glenn was polite enough, if a little cold. Maya was sweet when she was little. When did it change? That's what haunted me during that long drive. When did my sister go from the girl who used to laugh so hard she'd snort to the woman whispering from a closet about suicide? I tried calling her 3 times during the drive. She didn't answer. I told myself she was just being careful, but my hands gripped the steering wheel a little tighter each time it went to voicemail. It was 3:30 in the morning when I pulled into the Dixie stop. The neon sign flickered, casting sickly yellow light over the cracked pavement. There were maybe 4 cars in the lot, truckers mostly, sleeping in their cabs. And then I saw her. Sitting on the curb near the diesel pumps, hugging her knees to her chest, was my sister. But she looked like a homeless woman. Her clothes were stained with old grease and what might have been food. Her shoes, I kid you not, were held together with duct tape. She was so thin I could see her collarbones jutting out through her shirt like knives. I pulled my Lincoln Navigator right up in front of her. She flinched, actually flinched, raising her arms like she expected to be hit. I got out of the car fast. "Rosie, baby, it's me. It's Robin." She looked up, and in the harsh light I could see her face clearly for the first time. Both eyes were bruised now. Her bottom lip was split. There were finger-shaped bruises on her arms. She looked at me for a long second, like she was trying to remember who I was. Then she collapsed into my arms, sobbing. She weighed nothing. I could feel every rib, every vertebra in her spine. My sister, who used to be thick and curvy, who Mama used to say had meat on her bones, was a skeleton wrapped in skin. I held her tight and let her cry. And while I held her, I made a decision. This wasn't going to be a rescue mission where I swooped in, paid for a lawyer, and sent her to some women's shelter while the system slowly, maybe possibly got around to delivering justice. No, I was going to do this my way. We sat in my car with the heat cranked up. I had a thermos of coffee and some sandwiches I'd grabbed at a gas station. I handed her a turkey in Swiss. She ate it like she'd never seen food before, swallowing huge chunks without even chewing. "Slow down, baby," I said gently. "You'll make yourself sick." She nodded but kept eating. Between bites, she told me everything. 5 years ago, Maya and Travis moved into the house. Just temporary, they said. Travis had lost his job. They needed to get back on their feet. Glenn agreed immediately. He didn't ask Rosie. 6 months became a year became 2. Travis started calling Rosie by her first name instead of Mom, then old woman, then worse things. "He trips me," Rosie said quietly, staring at the sandwich. "On purpose, in the kitchen. He sticks his foot out and when I fall he laughs. Glenn laughs too." They moved her out of the master bedroom 3 years ago. Said her coughing at night was keeping them awake. Them, Glenn and Travis. They put her in the basement. "There's just a mattress down there," Rosie whispered. "On the concrete. It's cold, Robin, it's so cold. And at night, Glenn locks the door from the outside. Says it's for my own safety, so I don't wander around and hurt myself." She pulled up her sleeve. There were rope burns around her wrists. Last month I tried to leave. I packed a bag and got as far as the driveway. Travis caught me. He tied me to a chair in the basement for 2 days. Said I needed to think about my behavior. Glenn knew. Maya knew. Nobody stopped him. The lock on the refrigerator came next. Then they started feeding her from a dog bowl on the floor. Actual leftovers. Bones with gristle still on them, cold rice, whatever they didn't want. They take my pension check, she said. Every month, $3,500. Glenn cashes it and gives me $20. He says it's my allowance for being good. I listened to all of this without interrupting. I learned a long time ago that in business, the person who talks first loses. You listen, you gather information, you build your case. When she finished, she looked at me with those bruised eyes and said, "Robin, I just want to disappear. I want to stop existing. It would be easier." I reached over and took her hand. "Baby, you're not going to disappear. They are." She shook her head. "You don't understand. Glenn has lawyers. He told me last week that he has papers that say I'm incompetent, that I'm senile. He says if I try to leave, he'll have me committed. He says nobody will believe me over him." "Well," I said, smiling for the first time since this nightmare began, "it's a good thing they're not dealing with you anymore, isn't it?" She looked confused. "What do you mean?" I pulled a bag from the back seat. Inside were the clothes I'd brought. Clean jeans, a nice blouse, a jacket. "Put these on." While she changed in the back of the Navigator, I pulled out a makeup kit. I looked in the rearview mirror. My face was Rosie's face, but sharper. I wore my hair in a short natural cut, neat and professional. Rosie's hair was longer, neglected, wild. "Rosie," I said, "how long since you been to a salon?" "Glenn says I don't need one. Waste of money." Of course he did. I pulled out scissors and started cutting my own hair, making it longer, more uneven. I messed it up, made it look neglected. Then I took off my gold watch, my pearl earrings, everything that screamed money. When Rosie climbed back into the front seat, clean and dressed in clothes that actually fit, she looked almost human again. I handed her the keys to my Navigator. "There's a black American Express card in the center console. No limit. I've booked you a suite at the Ritz-Carlton in Buckhead, Atlanta. Room 402. It's under my name." Her eyes went wide. "Robin, I can't." "Yes, you can. You're going to drive to that hotel. You're going to check in. You're going to order room service. I want you to eat a steak, Rosie, a real steak. You're going to take a long bath in that big tub, and you're going to sleep in a bed with sheets that cost more than Glenn's soul." "But what about you?" I looked at my reflection one more time. I'd aged myself down, if that makes sense. Made myself look tired, worn, defeated. I picked up Rosie's old clothes, the stained shirt, the taped-up shoes, and started putting them on. "I'm going back to your house," I said. "No, Robin, they'll think I'm you." I looked at her, and even I was startled by how much we looked alike now. Take away the confidence, the good posture, the expensive clothes, and we were the same person. They're not going to know the difference, but I'm going to know everything. I'm going to see what they do, hear what they say, and I'm going to find out exactly what they're planning. "They'll hurt you." I reached under the seat and showed her the Glock. "Baby, I spent 40 years in rooms with men who thought they could intimidate me because I was black, because I was a woman, because I was from Alabama. I've stared down CEOs who thought they could cheat me. I've fired men who thought they were untouchable." I put the gun back. "Glenn and Travis and Maya? They're amateurs, they're bullies, and bullies break real easy once you hit back." Rosie started crying again, but this time it was different. It wasn't hopeless sobbing. It was relief. "How long?" she asked. "Give me a week, maybe less. I'll text you when it's time to come home. But Rosie, when you do come back, you're not coming back as the woman they broke. You understand me?" She nodded. "Now go. Drive safe. Don't speed. And Rosie," I touched her face gently, "order the lobster too, and champagne, and whatever the hell else you want. You've been starving for 5 years. It's time to eat." She drove away in my Navigator, and I watched until the taillights disappeared. Then I got into her beat-up truck, and I mean beat up. The engine coughed like it had tuberculosis. The passenger door was held shut with a bungee cord. The whole cab smelled like mold and motor oil. I gripped the steering wheel and felt the duct tape rough under my palms. This was how my sister had been living. This was the vehicle she drove while Glenn and Travis and Maya ate steak and slept in comfortable beds and spent her pension money on God knows what. I started the engine and pointed it toward Atlanta. It was time for the Regan twins to teach these people a lesson our mama tried to teach us 50 years ago. Don't mistake quiet for weak. Don't mistake kind for stupid. And never ever make an enemy of a woman who's got nothing left to lose. The house was exactly what I expected. A modest brick ranch in one of those suburban neighborhoods where everyone pretends they're doing fine while they're drowning in debt and dysfunction. There was a new car in the driveway, a BMW that definitely didn't belong to Glenn the mechanic. The lawn was overgrown in patches but weirdly manicured near the front door, like someone cared about appearances but only where the neighbors could see. I pulled Rosie's truck around back like she'd told me to. The back door was unlocked, just like she'd said. I took a deep breath, let my shoulders slump, made my face slack, and walked in. The kitchen hit me first. It was a mess. Dirty dishes piled in the sink, takeout containers on the counter, empty wine bottles lined up like trophies. It smelled like old grease and expensive perfume, a combination that made my stomach turn. I stood there in the darkness, letting my eyes adjust, listening. Upstairs I could hear a TV, sports commentary, a man's voice laughing. I took one step toward the stairs. Well, look who finally decided to come back. The hallway light flicked on. Glenn stood there in boxer shorts and a stained undershirt. He was bigger than I expected. Not fat, but thick, with the kind of bulk that came from years of manual labor. His face was red, puffy, alcoholic red. He didn't ask where I'd been. He didn't ask if I was okay. He reached over to the counter, grabbed a dirty, wet rag that had been sitting there and threw it at me. It hit me in the chest with a wet slap and fell to the floor. "I thought you'd finally done us a favor and walked into traffic," he said. His voice was casual, conversational, like he was commenting on the weather. "But here you are, like a bad penny." I stood there, looking at the rag on the floor. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to straighten up, to speak, to put this man in his place. But that wasn't the plan. I let my shoulders stay slumped. I looked at the floor. "Clean up this floor, Rosie," Glenn said. "Travis spilled wine last night and he's going to be up in an hour. If he sees this mess, he's going to be in a bad mood, and you know what happens when Travis is in a bad mood." He walked past me to the refrigerator. I saw the padlock on it, shiny and new. He pulled out a carton of orange juice, took a long drink straight from the container, then turned back to me. "Don't expect breakfast, by the way. You lost your kitchen privileges when you disappeared last night." He looked me up and down with pure contempt. "Thought about calling the cops. Then I figured, where would you even go? You got no money, no friends, no car. You're stuck here with us, old woman. Might as well accept it." He walked back toward the stairs. "Get that floor clean. And don't make noise. I need my sleep." I waited until I heard his footsteps on the stairs, heard the bedroom door close. Then I slowly bent down and picked up the rag. My fingers closed around it, and I had to force myself not to squeeze too hard, not to let the rage show on my face. I looked at the sticky spot on the floor where wine had dried. I looked at the refrigerator with its padlock. I looked at the dirty dishes, the empty bottles, the evidence of people who thought they could live like kings on someone else's suffering. "Yes, Glenn," I whispered to the empty kitchen. My voice was rough, quiet, exactly like Rosie's. But inside I was Robin Regan. I was the woman who'd fired a department head in front of his entire team for embezzling. I was the woman who'd restructured a failing division by cutting out the dead weight without mercy. I was the woman who'd looked at a hostile takeover attempt and said, "Try it, see what happens." I got down on my hands and knees and started wiping the floor. And with every swipe of that rag, I made a mental list. Glenn, Travis, Maya, they'd taken everything from my sister. Her dignity, her peace, her will to live. I was going to take it all back. Every single piece. And when I was done, they were going to wish they'd never heard the name Reagan. I finished that floor at 5 in the morning. Every sticky spot, every dried ring where a glass had sat. I cleaned it on my hands and knees while the house slept above me, while the people who'd broken my sister dreamed whatever dreams bullies have. When I was done, I didn't go upstairs. I knew where I was supposed to sleep. The basement door was in the hallway, painted the same beige as the walls like they wanted to pretend it wasn't there. I opened it and looked down into darkness, pulled the string for the light bulb. A single bare bulb flickered to life, showing concrete steps leading down. It was worse than Rosie described. The basement wasn't finished. Bare concrete walls sweating with moisture, exposed pipes running across the ceiling, a furnace in the corner that clanked and hissed, and in the far corner, on the cold concrete floor, a twin mattress. It was stained yellow and brown, covered with a single thin blanket that smelled like mildew. No pillow, just a balled-up jacket. Next to it, a plastic bucket. I walked over and looked in the bucket. It was her bathroom. At night, when they locked the door at the top of the stairs, this bucket was all she had. I stood there in that basement, in that prison, and felt something in my chest go very still and very cold. This wasn't neglect. This wasn't even abuse in the traditional sense. This was systematic dehumanization. This was a plan to break a person down until they stopped being a person at all. I sat on the edge of that mattress. The springs creaked. I felt the cold of the concrete seeping through. In Chicago, I slept on a Tempur-Pedic mattress that cost $8,000. I had Egyptian cotton sheets, a goose-down comforter, and a heated blanket for winter. My sister had been sleeping here for 3 years. I heard footsteps above, heavy ones, a door slamming. The house was waking up. I lay back on the mattress and stared at the ceiling, at the water stains and the cobwebs. I could hear them moving around up there. Voices, muffled. The sound of the TV starting up. And I waited. Because that's what Rosie would do. Wait until she was called. Wait until she was needed. Wait until someone remembered she existed. The basement door opened at 7. Sunlight stabbed down the stairs, and a voice called out, "Hey, old woman, get up here. We need breakfast." I climbed those stairs slowly, making my movements stiff like my back hurt. I kept my eyes down. Travis stood at the top. Travis Mitchell. I'd heard Rosie describe him, but seeing him in person was different. He was in his early 30s, white, with that soft body of someone who'd never done a day of real work. He was wearing expensive-looking pajama pants and no shirt, holding a coffee mug that said "World's Best Dad." He didn't move out of the doorway. Made me squeeze past him. As I did, he stuck his foot out slightly. Not enough to trip me, just enough to make me stumble. I caught myself on the door frame. He laughed. "Careful there, Rosie. You're getting clumsy in your old age. Wouldn't want you falling and breaking a hip. We can't afford the hospital bills." I looked up at him for just a second. Let him see my eyes. Something flickered across his face. Confusion, maybe. Like he'd seen something that didn't belong. But then he shook his head and took a sip of his coffee. "Kitchen," he said, pointing. "Maya wants eggs. I want bacon. Glenn wants the usual. You remember how he likes it, don't you?" I shuffled into the kitchen. Maya was there now, sitting at the table, scrolling through her phone. She was pretty, I'll give her that. Took after Rosie when Rosie was young. Full face, nice curves, but her eyes were hard. She looked up when I came in, then immediately looked back at her phone like I wasn't worth her attention. "Coffee first," she said without looking at me. "And don't burn the eggs this time. Last week you ruined my breakfast." I moved to the coffee pot, started a new pot brewing. While it percolated, I opened the cupboards looking for food. The first 3 were almost empty. The 4th had some cans of beans, some ramen packets. The 5th had cereal boxes, expensive stuff, organic granola, the kind that costs $12 a box. "Not those," Maya snapped. "That's mine. Check the bottom shelf." The bottom shelf had a sleeve of off-brand crackers and a can of Vienna sausages. I heard Glenn's footsteps on the stairs. He walked into the kitchen, saw me, and grunted. "About time. I'm starving." He sat down at the table next to Maya. "Bacon and eggs, toast, and I want that good jam, the strawberry stuff from the farmer's market." I looked in the refrigerator. Had to wait for Glenn to unlock it. Inside was full. Fresh vegetables, good meats, a dozen eggs, real butter, the expensive kind. I pulled out eggs and bacon. 6 eggs for me," Glenn said. "Scrambled. Maya wants 3, over easy. Travis wants 4, sunny side up. And make sure that bacon is crispy. None of that limp garbage." "What about—" I let my voice trail off. "What about what?" Glenn asked. "What about me?" Glenn and Maya exchanged a look. Maya actually smirked. "There's leftovers," Glenn said, pointing to something near the back door. I looked. There was a bowl on the floor. A dog bowl, except they didn't have a dog. Inside the bowl was a dried-up chicken wing with bite marks on it and some congealed rice. Eat that after you're done serving us, Glenn said. And don't let me catch you stealing our food. That's a household rule. You break it, there are consequences. I stood there holding the egg carton. Every fiber of my being wanted to crack those eggs over his head, wanted to tell him exactly who he was talking to, wanted to show him what consequences really looked like. Instead, I nodded. Yes, Glenn, I cooked their breakfast. I made it perfect. Eggs exactly how they wanted. Bacon crispy, toast golden. I poured their coffee, put cream and sugar on the table, even found some fresh fruit to put in a bowl. I served Glenn first, then Maya. Then I took Travis's plate to where he'd moved into the living room, sitting on the leather recliner with his feet up on the coffee table. They ate. They talked about their day. They complained about the food, even though it was perfect. They didn't look at me. It was like I was furniture, a moving appliance that happened to look human. When they finished, Glenn pushed his plate toward me. Clean up, and do the dishes from last night, too. Travis, let's go look at that truck in the driveway. Guy on Craigslist is selling one I might want. They left. Maya disappeared upstairs with her phone. I stood in the kitchen alone, looking at the plates of half-eaten food, the scraps they'd left, the dog bowl on the floor. I picked up the dog bowl. I looked at that sad chicken wing and the cold rice. Then I walked to the table. Travis had left half a steak from last night on his plate. A good piece of meat, probably 10 ounces, cooked medium rare. I picked it up with my hand. I bit into it. It was delicious. I ate the whole thing standing right there in the kitchen. Ate it with my fingers, juice running down my chin, not caring about manners or appearances. I ate it like a person who'd been starving, because that's what Rosie had been. Starving. When I finished, I licked my fingers clean and smiled. They thought they'd broken her. They thought she was too scared, too weak, too beaten down to ever fight back. They had no idea what was coming. That first day, I spent every minute studying them, learning their patterns, their routines, their weaknesses. Glenn went to work at the garage at 8, came home at 5, drank 4 beers every evening, sitting in front of the TV, fell asleep in his chair by 9. Travis didn't go to work. He claimed he was between jobs and looking for the right opportunity. What he actually did was sit on the couch playing video games, scrolling through his phone, and making phone calls where he talked quietly and looked over his shoulder a lot. Maya left at 10 for yoga and errands, and didn't come home until 3. She brought shopping bags, expensive ones. I recognized the labels: Nordstrom, Neiman Woods, boutiques that charged more for a purse than most people made in a week. They were spending money they didn't have, or rather money that wasn't theirs. At 6 o'clock that evening, Glenn called me up from the basement. Rosie, get your ass up here. We're having a family meeting. I climbed those stairs again. They were all sitting at the kitchen table. Glenn had papers spread out in front of him. Sit, he said, pointing to a chair. Not at the table, a folding chair they'd set up about 3 feet away. Apart from them. Like I wasn't really part of the family, I sat. We've been talking, Glenn said, and we've decided it's time to make some changes. This house, it's too big for us, too expensive to maintain. The roof needs work, the plumbing's getting old, and honestly, we're just tired of dealing with it. Maya nodded along like a bobblehead. So we're gonna sell it, Glenn continued. I've already talked to a realtor. Nice lady. She says we can get maybe $300,000 for it. Maybe $350 if we're lucky. $300,000. I filed that number away. Now the house is in your name, Glenn said, looking at me like this pained him. But we all know you're not capable of making these kinds of decisions anymore. You're getting forgetful, Rosie. You're confused. So we need you to sign some papers giving Maya power of attorney. That way she can handle the sale and we don't have to bother you with all the complicated legal stuff. He slid papers across to my chair. I could see they were legal documents, but from where I sat, I couldn't read the details. You just sign right there, Travis said, pointing to a line at the bottom. And we'll take care of everything. Once the house sells, we'll find you a nice little apartment somewhere. One of those senior living places. You'll love it. They have activities and everything. A senior living place, a nursing home. They were going to lock Rosie away and take her house. I made my voice weak, confused. I don't understand. This is my home. Glenn, we've lived here for 32 years. And it's been a great run, Glenn said, but his voice had an edge now. But things change. We're doing what's best for the family. Now sign the paper. What if I don't want to? The temperature in the room dropped about 20 degrees. Glenn leaned forward. Rosie, I've been patient with you. I've put up with your confusion, your forgetfulness, your episodes. But I'm not asking anymore. I'm telling you. Sign the paper. And if I don't? Travis stood up. He walked over to my chair, leaned down close to my face. Then we take you to a doctor. We get you evaluated. We have you declared incompetent. And then the state puts you somewhere, and trust me, those state facilities, they're not nice. They're where people go to die. He straightened up, smiling. So really, we're doing you a favor. Sign the paper, and you get to live somewhere comfortable. Don't sign, and you go to a place where they strap you to a bed and pump you full of drugs until you forget your own name. Your choice. I looked at the three of them. Glenn with his false concern, Maya with her cold eyes, Travis with his threatening smile. Can I think about it? I asked quietly. Sure, Glenn said, gathering up the papers. You can think about it. You've got until Saturday. We're having an anniversary party. 40 years, can you believe it? All our friends will be there, the church folks, everyone. And at that party, you're going to sign these papers in front of everybody. We're going to call it a gift to the family, a generous gesture from a loving mother. He stood up, towering over me. And if you even think about making a scene, about embarrassing us in front of our friends, I promise you, Rosie, you'll regret it. We'll have you in a facility by Monday morning. Understand? I nodded, kept my eyes down. Good. Now get back in the basement. I don't want to look at you right now. I stood up and shuffled toward the basement door. As I reached it, I heard Maya say, God, she's pathetic. And Travis, yeah, but after Saturday, she's not our problem anymore. They laughed. I went down those stairs and closed the door behind me, heard the deadbolt slide home, locked in for the night. I sat on that mattress in the dark for exactly 5 minutes, long enough for them to forget about me, to go back to their TV shows and their phones and their comfortable lives. Then I reached into my bra and pulled out the lockpick set I'd sewn into the underwire. I walked to the top of the stairs, put the pick in the deadbolt, applied tension, felt for the pins. Click, click. The bolt slid back. I opened the door a crack, listened. TV playing in the living room, someone laughing at a sitcom. I slipped out, moved through the house like smoke. I've done this before. In Sao Paulo, I once had to retrieve documents from a locked office while security was doing rounds. You learn to walk quiet when your career depends on it. I found Glenn's office in what used to be the spare bedroom. The door had a cheap lock. I opened it in 3 seconds. Inside, there was a desk piled with papers. I pulled out my phone, a burner I'd bought at a truck stop, and started photographing everything. Bills, bank statements, a leather ledger where Glenn kept handwritten accounts. I opened the ledger. There it was in black and white. Monthly income. Rosie's pension, $3,500. Glenn's salary, $2,800. Monthly expenses. Mortgage, $1,200. Travis crypto investment, $2,000. Maya shopping, $600. Glenn liquor store, $300. Utilities, $350. Rosie's allowance, $20. I photographed every page. Months and months of theft documented in Glenn's own handwriting. Then I found something else. In the bottom drawer, taped to the underside, a manila envelope. Inside was a life insurance policy. I held my phone's flashlight closer to read it. Policyholder, Rosie Carter, coverage amount, $500,000. Beneficiary, Travis Mitchell. Policy date, 3 months ago, $500,000. And Travis was the beneficiary. Not Glenn, not Maya. Travis. I photographed every page of that policy. Then I kept digging. Property tax statements, a letter from a real estate development company, zoning maps, and buried under everything else, a commercial property appraisal. I read it twice to make sure I wasn't mistaken. The house, Rosie's house, wasn't worth $300,000. According to this appraisal dated 2 weeks ago, the land alone was worth $4 million. $4 million. I sat back in the chair and let that sink in. The house sat right in the middle of a proposed commercial development. Shopping center, major highway access. The appraisal specifically noted, Keystone property. Without this lot, project cannot proceed. Travis knew. That's why he was pushing so hard for the sale. That's why he had the life insurance policy. That's why he'd loosened the gas line. I'd found those wrench marks, fresh scratches on the fitting. If Rosie died, he got $500,000. If she signed the house away, he could sell it to developers for $4 million. Either way, he won. And Rosie ended up with nothing. Or dead. I photographed everything. Then I put it all back exactly as I'd found it. Relocked the office door. Ghosted back to the basement. Slid the deadbolt home from the inside so they'd think it had never been opened. I lay on that moldy mattress and opened an encrypted message to Sterling, my lawyer in Chicago. Attached all the photos. Typed a simple message. Attempted murder. Fraud. Elder abuse. Property worth $4 million. They're trying to steal it. Need full legal package by Saturday. Also need deep background on Travis Mitchell and Maya Carter. Everything. His response came back in 30 seconds. On it. This is bad, Robin. I typed back. I know, but I've seen worse. Start the paperwork. I'll send more intel tomorrow. I put the phone away and stared at the ceiling. The pieces were coming together, but I needed more. I needed them to feel safe enough to show me who they really were. I needed to dangle bait they couldn't resist. The next morning, I woke to someone pounding on the basement door. Rosie, get up! Glenn needs you to make breakfast before he goes to work. Same routine. Climb the stairs, cook the food, serve them, watch them eat while I got scraps. But today was different. Today, I was going to poke the bear. While I was washing dishes, I accidentally dropped one. It shattered on the floor. Glenn came running. What the hell was that? I'm sorry, I said, my voice trembling. My hands, they're shaking. I don't know why. He looked at my hands. They were trembling, but not because I was old or scared, because I was making them tremble. You're falling apart, he muttered. Travis, get in here. Travis appeared, still in his pajamas. She's getting worse, Glenn said. Look at her, shaking, dropping things. I think we need to move up the timeline. What do you mean? I asked quietly. Glenn looked at me like I was a problem to be solved. I mean, I think we need to take you to see a doctor. Today. Get you evaluated. See if you're safe to even be in this house. I'm fine, I said. I just need to rest. You'll rest when a doctor says you can rest, Glenn snapped. Travis, call Dr. Williams. Tell him we need an emergency appointment. 2 hours later, they had me in Glenn's car, driving across town. Travis was in the front seat. I was in the back, like a prisoner. Dr. Williams is a friend, Glenn said as he drove. He specializes in geriatric issues, memory problems, dementia. He's going to evaluate you and determine if you're competent to make your own decisions. I knew what this was. I'd seen corporate versions of this same scam. They were going to have some corrupt doctor declare Rosie mentally incompetent, get a judge to sign off on guardianship, and then they'd have complete control of her money and property. We pulled up to a strip mall office between a liquor store and a payday loan place. The sign said Dr. L. Williams, M.D., family practice. Inside, the waiting room was empty. The receptionist looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. She barely looked up as Glenn checked us in. He'll see you right away, she said, waving toward a door. We went into an exam room. Dr. Williams was waiting. He was in his 50s, sweating despite the air conditioning, with shaking hands and the bloodshot eyes of a serious drinker. His white coat had a stain on it. This wasn't a real doctor. This was a pill mill operator, the kind who'd been kicked out of better practices and ended up in strip malls prescribing opioids for cash. Mrs. Carter, he said, not looking at me directly. Your husband says you've been having some problems, memory issues, confusion. Is that right? Before I could answer, Glenn jumped in. She's been getting worse, dropping things, forgetting conversations. Last week she left the stove on and almost burned the house down. That was a lie. But Doctor, Williams just nodded and wrote it down. We think she needs medication, Travis added. Something to help her stay calm, keep her from getting agitated. Dr. Williams pulled out a syringe. It was already filled with clear liquid. This is just a mild sedative, he said. It'll help you relax. Help us do a proper evaluation. I knew what that was. A chemical cocktail. Once they got that in my system, they could do whatever they wanted. Sign papers with my fingerprints on them while I was unconscious. Have me declared incompetent while I drooled and stared at walls. Dr. Williams approached with the needle. I let him get close. Real close. Close enough that he thought he had me. Then I moved. I grabbed his wrist. Not gently. I grabbed it with the full strength of a woman who spent 40 years in boardrooms where showing weakness got you destroyed. I twisted his arm, forcing the needle away from me, pointing it back at his own chest. The syringe clattered to the floor. "What the—" Glenn started. I stood up, dropped the tremor from my voice, straightened my spine. Let them see who was really in this room. "Sit down, Dr. Williams," I said. My voice was different now, deeper, stronger. The voice I used when I was firing someone. "We need to have a conversation." Dr. Williams stumbled back, hitting the exam table. His face had gone white. "Who are you?" he whispered. "I'm someone who knows about the gambling debts you have," I said quietly. "I know about the $50,000 you owe to John Rivera. I know Rivera gave you until Friday to pay or he's going to break your fingers." His mouth fell open. "How do you—" "I also know about the prescriptions you've been writing," I continued. "The DEA is investigating you, Dr. Williams. Did you know that? They've been watching you for 3 months. You're about 6 weeks away from losing your license and going to federal prison." That was a bluff, but from the way his face drained of color, I'd hit close enough to home. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want you to walk into that waiting room and tell my husband that I am the sanest woman you've ever examined. I want you to write on your official letterhead that I am fully competent, fully capable of managing my own affairs, and that any attempt to declare me otherwise would be medical malpractice." "But Glenn said—" "I don't care what Glenn said. Glenn doesn't own you. I do, because I paid off Rivera this morning. I bought your debt, Dr. Williams. You don't work for Glenn anymore. You work for me." That was also a bluff, but it didn't matter. Dr. Williams believed it. I could see it in his eyes. The shift from predator to prey. Glenn jumped up. "Now wait just a minute." "Sit down, Glenn," I said, not looking at him. "Adults are talking." The shock on his face was almost funny. Almost. Dr. Williams looked from me to Glenn, then back to me. He made his choice. He grabbed his prescription pad and started writing, his hands shaking so hard he could barely hold the pen. "Fully competent," he muttered as he wrote. "Capable of managing her own affairs. No signs of dementia or cognitive decline." He signed it, stamped it, and practically threw it at me. I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket. "Thank you, doctor. We won't be needing your services again." We walked out. Glenn and Travis were speechless, following me like confused dogs. In the car, Glenn finally found his voice. "What the hell was that? What did you do in there?" I looked at him in the rearview mirror. Let him see my eyes. Really see them. "I took care of business," I said. Something I'm very good at. For the first time since I'd arrived, I saw fear in Glenn's face. Real fear. Good. That evening I made my move. While they were all gathered in the living room watching TV, I walked in and stood in front of the screen. "Turn it off," I said. Maya looked up, annoyed. "Excuse me?" I said, "Turn it off. We need to talk." Glenn stood up. "Rosie, get out of the way. We're watching." "I won a lottery," I said. The room went silent. "What?" Maya asked. "A scratch-off ticket. I had $5 I'd saved up. Bought a ticket at the gas station last week. Won." Glenn took a step closer. "Won what? How much?" I looked at each of them. I could see it in their eyes already. The greed, the hunger, the calculations running through their heads. "Enough," I said. "Enough to buy new clothes." I gestured to the outfit I was wearing. I'd changed into something nicer earlier, some of Rosie's old clothes from the back of the closet that still fit. "Enough to never worry about money again." "How much?" Travis demanded. I smiled. "Enough that I don't need your help anymore. Enough that I think maybe I don't want to sell the house after all." And then I walked out of the room and went down to the basement, leaving them sitting there with their mouths open. I lay on the mattress and listened to them upstairs. They were arguing, loud enough that I could hear some of it. "She's lying," that was Travis. "What if she's not?" Maya's voice, shrill and excited. "We need to find out how much." Glenn, trying to be the voice of reason. "The party," Maya said. "We can use the party. Get her emotional. Get her in front of everyone. Pressure her to share the money with family." Perfect. They were doing exactly what I wanted. My phone buzzed. A message from Sterling. "Background check complete. Travis has $89,000 in gambling debts. Real estate company he works for is a front. He's actually a consultant for developers. He knows about the property value. Found evidence he's been negotiating side deals. Also, Maya has $40,000 in credit card debt Glenn doesn't know about. They're all drowning. Your sister's money is the only thing keeping them afloat. Another message. Divorce papers ready. Restraining orders ready. Fraud complaints filed with DA. Say the word and we drop the hammer. I typed back, not yet. Saturday. The party. I want witnesses. Lots of them. You're enjoying this? Sterling, these people tried to kill my sister. Tried to steal everything she had. Tried to erase her from existence. Damn right I'm enjoying this. I put the phone away and stared at the ceiling. 4 more days until Saturday. 4 more days until the anniversary party where they plan to humiliate Rosie one last time, force her to sign away her home in front of all their friends. 4 more days until I burned their world down. And the best part? They still thought I was Rosie. They still thought they were dealing with a broken old woman who'd been beaten into submission. They had no idea they'd let a wolf into their house. A wolf who was very, very hungry. The days between Wednesday and Saturday felt like watching a pot come to boil. I could see the heat building, the pressure rising, even if they couldn't. Glenn spent those days making phone calls. Yeah, we're having the party at the house. No, nothing fancy, just family and friends. 40 years, can you believe it? His voice was all syrupy sweetness when he talked to people from church, but the second he hung up, his face went hard. He was planning something. They all were. Thursday morning, Travis cornered me in the kitchen. Glenn and Maya were out running errands. So, he said, sitting on the counter while I was supposed to be washing dishes. This lottery win. That's pretty convenient timing. I kept my eyes down, my voice quiet. Just lucky, I guess. How much was it? Exactly. I don't remember exactly. Enough. He hopped down from the counter and got close to me. Too close. I could smell the stale beer on his breath. See, here's the thing, Rosie. I don't believe you. I think you're making it up. I think you're trying to get out of signing those papers, and you thought a little story might make us back off. I turned to look at him, kept Rosie's beaten-down expression on my face. It's not a story. Prove it. What? Prove it. Show me the ticket. Show me the money. I dried my hands on a towel. It's in a safe place. Where? A bank. Which bank? I just looked at him. This was the moment. I could see him deciding whether to push harder or back off. His eyes narrowed. You know what I think? He said softly. I think you're getting brave. I think maybe you forgot what happens when you don't cooperate. You remember that chair in the basement? The rope? My heart was pounding, but not with fear, with rage. I wanted to break his nose right there, wanted to show him what happens when you threaten a Regan woman. But not yet, not yet. I remember, I whispered. Good, because after the party on Saturday, if you don't sign those papers, we're going to have another one of our conversations. Just you and me. And this time maybe I'll use something stronger than rope. Understand? I nodded, kept my eyes down. He patted my cheek, hard enough to sting. That's my girl. Now finish those dishes. And don't even think about running. We're watching you. After he left, I stood at the sink, my hands gripping the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. I looked at my reflection in the window. The face was Rosie's. But the eyes, those were mine. Robin Regan's. And they were ice cold. I pulled out my phone and texted Sterling. He just threatened me with physical violence, in case we need it for the restraining order. Already noted in the file. How are you holding up? I've negotiated with Mexican drug cartels and Russian oligarchs. This is amateur hour. That's my girl. Rosie's plane lands Friday night. I've got her in a nice hotel under your name. She's nervous. Tell her not to be. Tell her tomorrow. She gets her life back. Friday afternoon, Maya came to me with a dress. A dress I recognized from years ago, from when Rosie used to have nice things. Try this on, Maya said, tossing it at me. For the party tomorrow. Glenn wants you to look presentable. Can't have you embarrassing us in front of our friends looking like a homeless person. The dress was outdated, the fabric worn, but it was clean. I took it. And shower, Maya added, wrinkling her nose. You smell like that basement. Use soap this time. That evening I did shower. First hot water I'd had since I got here. While the water ran over me, washing away days of sweat and dirt, I let myself think about Rosie, about the phone call from Sterling earlier. She looks better, he'd said. She's gained about 8 pounds. got some color back in her face. But Robin, she's scared. She keeps asking if this is real, if they can really make her go back. They can't, I told him. After tomorrow, they'll never touch her again. She wants to talk to you. Not yet. Tomorrow. I need her reaction to be real. I need everyone at that party to see the genuine shock when she walks in. Now, standing in that shower in my sister's house, I let myself feel the weight of what I was about to do. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about reclaiming a life. This was about showing a woman who'd been broken that she could be whole again. I got out, dried off, and looked in the mirror. Steam covered the glass, but I could still see my face. Rosie's face. Our face. Tomorrow, I whispered to my reflection. Tomorrow they learn what the Regan twins are really made of. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather, 75 degrees, not a cloud in the sky. The kind of day that feels like a gift, like the universe is cooperating with your plans. By 8 a.m., the caterers arrived. Glenn had spent a fortune, money he didn't have, money he'd stolen from Rosie, on a white tent, tables, chairs, flowers. The backyard was transformed into something out of a magazine. I watched from the basement window as they set everything up. Watched Glenn directing people, playing the role of the proud husband, celebrating 4 decades of marriage. Watched Maya fussing over decorations, making sure everything looked perfect for her social media photos. Watched Travis on his phone, probably texting his developer contacts, probably already counting the money he'd make from selling the property. They were so confident, so sure this would go their way. At 10 a.m., Glenn came down to the basement. Get dressed. Party starts at 1. You need to be ready to greet guests. What about breakfast? I asked. You can eat at the party. After. When the guests are gone. Right now I need you presentable and smiling. Can you do that? I nodded. He stared at me for a long moment. You've been acting strange this week. Different. I don't like it. I'm just tired. Yeah, well, after today you can rest all you want. In your new apartment. Away from us. He started up the stairs, then turned back. And Rosie, don't even think about making a scene today. You sign those papers, you smile for the pictures, and you act like the loving wife and mother you're supposed to be. You do that, and this all goes smooth. You understand? I understand, Glenn. Good. The door closed. The bolt slid home. I pulled out my phone, texted Rosie directly for the first time. It's time. Get your hair done. Wear the blue suit Sterling bought you. Be at the house at 2 p.m. Park down the street around the corner. Wait for my signal. I love you, baby sister. Her response came back immediately. I'm scared. I know, but I'm going to be right there with you. And after today, you're never going to be scared again. Trust me. I do. I love you, Robin. I put the phone away and got dressed. Put on that old dress Maya had given me. Looked at myself in the cracked mirror hanging on the basement wall. One more time. I was Rosie one more time, but not for long. By 1 p.m., the backyard was full. I counted about 50 people, neighbors, church members, some of Glenn's friends from the garage, Maya's yoga class friends, and a group of men in suits who I recognized from their LinkedIn photos as Travis's real estate contacts. They'd even invited a deacon from the church, Deacon Morris, a big man with a bigger voice who stood near the buffet table talking about the sanctity of marriage and the importance of family. I stood in the kitchen, watching through the window. Glenn was working the crowd, shaking hands, laughing at jokes. Maya was taking selfies with the decorations. Travis was near the bar, drinking already, his eyes scanning the crowd like a predator looking for prey. Rosie, Glenn called from the back door. Get out here. People want to see you. I walked outside. The sun was bright, almost blinding after days in the basement. Guests turned to look at me. I saw their expressions. Pity, mostly. Some confusion. Mrs. Henderson from next door actually gasped when she saw my bruised face. The bruises had faded to yellow and green, but they were still visible. Oh, Rosie, she said, reaching for me. What happened to your face? She fell, Glenn said quickly, putting his arm around my shoulders. It looked like affection to everyone else. To me, it felt like a vice. She's getting clumsy in her old age. We're actually thinking about getting her into a place where she can have round-the-clock care, for her safety. Murmurs of sympathy from the crowd. I smiled, kept my mouth shut, played the role, for now. Glenn guided me to a chair, not at the main table, but a small folding chair off to the side. Sit here. Smile. Wave when people look at you. And remember, no scenes. I sat. I smiled. I watched. At 1:30, Glenn tapped a spoon against a champagne glass. The sharp ringing cut through the conversation. The crowd quieted and turned toward him. "Our friend's family thank you all for coming today," Glenn said, his voice warm and full of false emotion. 40 years. 40 years ago, I married the love of my life, and today, we're here to celebrate not just our marriage, but our family, our future, and the incredible journey we've been on together. Applause. People wiping their eyes like this was touching. "Now, Rosie's been my rock through all these years," Glenn continued. "She stood by me, supported me, raised our daughter, and built this home with me. And today, she wants to do something special. Something that shows just how much she loves her family." He gestured to me. "Honey, come on up here." My heart was pounding. This was it. The moment they'd been building to all week. The moment they thought they'd won. I stood up slowly, walked to where Glenn stood on a small raised platform they'd set up near the tent. He handed me a microphone. "Go ahead, honey," he said, smiling that smile I'd learned to hate. "Tell everyone about your gift." I took the microphone, looked out at the 50 faces staring at me. Some curious, some already emotional, all of them expecting to see a sweet old lady thank her family and give them everything. I cleared my throat. "Thank you all for coming today," I said. My voice was soft, shaky, exactly like Rosie's. "It means so much to see all these familiar faces, people I've known for years, people who've watched our family grow." Glenn nodded encouragingly. Travis was standing near the back, arms crossed, watching me like a hawk. "Before I talk about my gift," I continued, "I want to tell you all a story. About marriage. About family. About what it really means to love someone for 40 years. Glenn's smile flickered slightly. "Most of you think you know me," I said. "You think you know Rosie Carter, the quiet woman who goes to church, who smiles and nods, who never causes trouble. The woman who's always in the background, always serving, always taking care of everyone else." I took a step forward. "But I wonder how many of you know about the basement." The crowd shifted. Uncomfortable looks exchanged. The basement where I've been sleeping for 3 years, on a mattress on concrete, with a bucket for a bathroom because the door gets locked at night. Glenn's face went red. "Rosie, what are you? I wonder how many of you know about the dog bowl." I kept going, my voice getting stronger. "The dog bowl on the kitchen floor where I eat leftovers, while my family eats steak, while they spend my pension check on liquor and shopping and gambling." Maya stood up. "Mom, you're confused. I wonder how many of you know about the lock on the refrigerator, or the rope burns on my wrists from when Travis tied me to a chair for 2 days because I tried to leave." Gasps from the crowd. Mrs. Henderson had her hand over her mouth. "And I especially wonder," I said, walking to the edge of the platform, "how many of you know about the gas leak?" Travis went pale. 3 nights ago, someone loosened the flex line on the furnace in the basement, where I sleep, where the door locks from the outside. If I hadn't smelled it, if I hadn't known what mercaptan was, I would have died in my sleep. Or the house would have exploded. The crowd was dead silent now. Phones were coming out. People were filming. Glenn grabbed for the microphone. "She's confused. She has dementia. She doesn't know what she's saying." I pulled the microphone away from him, reached into my dress pocket and pulled out the papers Dr. Williams had written. "According to this medical evaluation from 3 days ago, I'm perfectly sane, fully competent, no signs of cognitive decline." Glenn's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "But the best part," I said, reaching into my other pocket and pulling out my phone, "is that I recorded everything." I connected the phone to the speaker system. Glenn had rented expensive equipment, ironically enough. My voice was about to be amplified for everyone to hear. Travis's voice boomed out over the speakers. "It's not about her, Glenn. It's about the dirt. This house is sitting on $4 million. $4 million. The developers need this lot for the shopping center. Without it, the whole project fails. And that old bitch is too stupid to even know what she's sitting on." The crowd erupted. Shocked gasps, angry mutters, people standing up. I let the recording play. Glenn trying to convince Dr. Williams to declare me incompetent. Maya laughing about how pathetic I was. Travis talking about the life insurance policy. $500,000 if she dies. We just need to make it look like an accident. By the time the recordings ended, half the guests were crying. The other half looked ready to lynch Glenn and Travis on the spot. Deacon Morris stood up, his face purple with rage. "Glenn Carter, what in God's name?" "It's lies," Glenn shouted. "She's making it up. She edited those recordings." "Did I edit this?" I asked, pulling out more papers. "These are bank statements, your bank statements, Glenn, showing you've stolen over $100,000 from my pension over the last 5 years. Or how about this?" I held up the life insurance policy. $500,000 on my life, with Travis as the beneficiary, taken out 3 months ago, right around the time someone started accidentally leaving the stove on, right around the time the brakes on my truck stopped working. Travis bolted. He actually tried to run, but Sterling had been standing in the crowd. I'd flown him in yesterday, and he stepped in front of Travis with 2 police officers I'd had waiting around the corner. "Travis Mitchell," one of the officers said, "you're under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, and elder abuse." The crowd parted as they cuffed Travis. He was screaming, "She's crazy! This is a setup! Glenn, tell them!" But Glenn wasn't talking. Glenn was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Fear. Pure, undiluted fear. Because he'd finally seen it. The shift in my posture. The confidence in my voice. The way I was standing like someone who'd spent 40 years in boardrooms, not basements. "Who are you?" he whispered. I reached up and took off the reading glasses Rosie wore, dropped them on the platform, stood up straight, shoulders back, head high. "I'm not Rosie," I said. The backyard went silent, 50 people holding their breath. "My name is Robin Reagan," I said clearly. "I'm Rosie's twin sister, and I've been living in this house for the past week, watching you, recording you, documenting every single crime you've committed against my sister." Glenn staggered backward. That's impossible." "Is it?" I turned to the gate at the side of the yard. "Rosie, honey, you can come in now." The gate opened, and my sister walked through. She was wearing a beautiful blue suit that fit her perfectly. Her hair was done, styled at a salon. She had color in her cheeks, strength in her stride. She looked healthy. She looked alive. She looked like me. The crowd lost their minds. People screaming, pointing, trying to understand how there were 2 Rosies standing there. Glenn actually stumbled, catching himself on a table. "No, no, no, no!" Rosie walked straight to the platform, straight to me. We stood side by side, identical twins reunited, and the look on Glenn's face was worth every second of sleeping on that moldy mattress. "Hello, Glenn," Rosie said. Her voice was quiet, but strong, stronger than I'd heard it in 30 years. "I'm done being afraid of you." She pulled papers from her purse. "These are divorce papers. I'm filing on grounds of abuse, fraud, and attempted murder. You get nothing. No pension, no house, no contact with me ever again." Glenn lunged forward. "You can't. The house is in both our names." "Actually," Sterling said, stepping forward, "according to property records, the house was deeded solely to Rosie Carter in 1995 as part of an inheritance from her mother. You never had ownership, Glenn. You just convinced her you did." Maya was crying now, mascara running down her face. "Daddy? Mom? What's happening?" Rosie turned to her daughter. For a moment, I saw her face soften, saw the mother in her wanting to comfort her child. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a $20 bill, held it out to Maya. "This is what your father gave me to live on every month," Rosie said. "While you spent hundreds on yoga classes and shopping, this is all you're getting from me. Use it for cab fare to the courthouse. You'll need it." Maya's face crumpled. "But I'm your daughter." "You watched them starve me. You watched them lock me in a basement. You laughed about it." Rosie's voice broke, but she held steady. "You stopped being my daughter the day you let them treat me like an animal." More sirens, more police cars pulling up. "Glenn Carter," the second officer said, "you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, and financial exploitation." They cuffed Glenn. He was babbling now, trying to explain, trying to make excuses. But nobody was listening. Deacon Morris walked up to the platform, tears streaming down his face. "Rosie, I'm so sorry. We had no idea. If we'd known—" "It's not your fault, Deacon," Rosie said. "They were very good at hiding it. Very good at making me look like I was the problem." Mrs. Henderson was sobbing. "I saw the bruises. I should have said something. I should have. You couldn't have known, I said, putting my arm around my sister. These men are experts at making their victims look crazy. That's how they get away with it for so long. The police were leading Glenn and Travis to separate cars. Maya was sitting on a chair, staring at nothing, her perfect party ruined, her perfect life exposed as a lie. I turned to Rosie. You okay? She looked at me. Then she started laughing. It was a surprised laugh, the laugh of someone who's been holding their breath for years and finally remembered how to breathe. I'm free, she whispered. Robin, I'm actually free. We hugged, really hugged, the way we used to when we were kids, when the world was simpler and we only had each other. You're more than free, I said into her ear. You're about to be rich. 3 months later, I sat in a courtroom in Atlanta watching justice being served. Travis got 10 years in federal prison. No parole. The attempted murder charge stuck, along with fraud and elder abuse. His lawyer tried to argue he was just following Glenn's lead, but the life insurance policy with his name as beneficiary buried that defense. Glenn got 8 years, plus a restraining order that prevented him from coming within 500 feet of Rosie for the rest of his life. In civil court, Rosie was awarded full ownership of everything: the house, the pension, every penny. Glenn left the marriage with nothing but a prison sentence and a destroyed reputation. Dr. Williams lost his medical license and got 2 years probation. He testified against Glenn and Travis, which helped, but his career was over. Maya wasn't charged criminally, but she became a social pariah overnight. The video of the party went viral, 4 million views in the first week. She lost her job, her friends, her social status. Last I heard, she was working at a diner off the interstate, living with roommates she couldn't stand, drowning in debt. Rosie sold the house to the developers for $4.5 million. The check cleared in 2 days. She didn't buy a mansion. She didn't try to win back the people who'd ignored her suffering. She did exactly what she'd always wanted to do, but never thought she could. She bought a luxury RV, 40 feet of freedom on wheels, bought a truck to tow it, bought a camera to document her travels, and she left. I'm back in Chicago now, sitting on my deck overlooking Lake Michigan. It's a Tuesday evening, the sky that perfect steel gray I love. I have a glass of wine, the same Bordeaux I was drinking the night Rosie called from that closet. But everything's different now. My phone buzzes. A text from Rosie. It's a photo. She's standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon, the vast red expanse behind her. She's wearing a hiking hat and sunglasses, smiling. It's the biggest smile I've seen on her face since we were teenagers. The caption reads, Day 47, Arizona is beautiful. Heading to Sedona tomorrow. Thank you for giving me my life back, sister. I text back. I didn't give it back. You took it back. I just helped you remember how. Another photo comes through. This one's a selfie of both of us from the day after the party. We're standing in Sterling's office, both wearing suits, both smiling. We look like twins again. Not because we're dressed the same, but because we both have that light back in our eyes. I pour another glass of wine and look out at the water. I think about the life I built, the corporate ladder I climbed, the battles I fought in boardrooms and conference rooms across 3 continents. All of it felt important at the time. Critical, even. But nothing I did in those 40 years mattered as much as driving 800 miles in the middle of the night to save my sister. Nothing I accomplished felt as good as watching Glenn and Travis being led away in handcuffs. Nothing I built lasted as long as the moment Rosie laughed, really laughed, for the first time in years. My phone rings. It's her, video call. I answer. Hey, baby sister, I say. She's in her RV, somewhere with mountains in the background. She looks healthy, happy, whole. I just wanted to tell you something, she says. I met a woman today at a campground. Nice lady, about my age. We got to talking and she told me she's been stuck in a bad situation. Her son and his girlfriend moved in, started taking over her life, treating her like a burden. I sit up straighter. What did you tell her? Rosie smiles, that strong smile, the Reagan twin smile that our mama gave us. I told her I knew someone who could help. Someone who doesn't back down from bullies. Someone who spent a week sleeping on a basement floor just to gather evidence. Rosie, and I gave her your number. I hope that's okay. I look at the phone, at my sister's face, and I think about what Sterling told me. Robin, you're building a reputation. We've gotten 3 calls this month from people in similar situations. They're calling you the twin. They say if you have a sister being abused, if someone's trying to steal from a family member, you call the twin and she fixes it. I hadn't planned on this becoming a thing. I just wanted to save Rosie. But maybe that's how things like this start. One sister saves another. Word spreads. Hope spreads. It's more than okay, I tell Rosie. Give her my number. Tell her I'll call tomorrow. I love you, Robin. I love you too, baby sister. Now go enjoy that sunset. Send me pictures. After we hang up, I sit there in the gathering darkness, thinking about the woman Rosie met. Thinking about her son and girlfriend who think they can get away with it because their victim is old, is quiet, is beaten down. They don't know what's coming. They don't know about the Regan twins. They don't know that sometimes the person you think is weak has a sister who spent 40 years learning how to destroy people who deserve it. I pick up my phone and start making a list. Things I'll need, questions I'll ask, evidence I'll have to gather. Because here's what Glenn and Travis and Maya learned too late. You can abuse someone for years. You can break them down, make them small, convince them they're nothing. But blood is blood. And when you hurt someone's sister, when you try to erase someone's twin, you're not just dealing with one person anymore. You're dealing with two. And we Regan women, we don't forgive. We don't forget. We investigate. We document. We build cases. We gather evidence. And then we destroy. I raise my glass to the darkening sky. To the woman Rosie met today, who doesn't know yet that her life is about to change. To every person out there being abused by family members who think they can get away with it. Here's to the switch, I whisper. The wine tastes like victory, like justice, like the beginning of something bigger than I'd planned. My phone is on the table, charged and ready, because somewhere out there right now, someone's calling their twin, their sister, their family member, whispering from a closet, hiding from people who are supposed to love them, thinking about pills, about giving up, about just going to sleep and never waking up. And when they call, I'll answer. I'll always answer, because that's what family does.